the show with Paul Daner, Mark Salafo. Kick off the weekend, all right. It's the Growler Friday show. It's Who Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Who Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr. of The Athletic, Mark Salafo here with you. What is up? It's not Friday. It's not a Friday show this week because everybody's got weekend vibes today. It's weekend vibes. Everybody's thinking about fall, thinking about trips because the schedule's out. So it's big. We're coming early today because everybody's feeling good.
Yeah, I like that we can keep in with the theme of early leakage that you and Dave started and really addressed earlier in the week. And now we get to move past all that. We've got something real in front of us. We've got stuff to talk about. We don't need to just worry about the leakage anymore.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. You know, that's sometimes
that's what you want to hear in your car, driving down the highway. Two guys just talking about early leakage problems.
Look, I don't want us to talk again about where we ended up last week on this show. So it's becoming a problematic theme that we probably need to address in some off-season meetings.
We don't want to lose our clean rating on the Apple Podcast app.
Apologies for the weird places that we've ended up going a couple of times on here, but hey, that's what you're signing up for. I can't guarantee anything. I'm a poor driver at this wheel. I don't know where it's going to go, except today, Mark, we're trying to keep a very specific lane. The schedule is out. You guys have questions. I have thoughts. So we're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to talk about from the Bengals point of view, well, from my point of view, of course, which I think is a scribe win slate. And from a traveling point of view, from trips in, trips out, trips that are now worse, trips that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. There's lots of places to go, and you guys had tons of questions. Thank you again to everybody that continues to always send questions into us to keep this thing going. You guys drive the boat here, and you guys are having a ton of fun with it, and we appreciate that. TheGrowlerPodcast at gmail.com. Keep sending those in because we're loving all the responses we got. You guys were on it this week.
Yeah, and we've got some great topics that we're not even going to be able to get to today. We've got some good off-season things that we're going to evaluate, some camp questions and some other roster questions that we got this week. All great stuff, all stuff that we appreciate. We got some other good homework suggestions. So we got a lot of great feedback from everybody. But yeah, like you said, we've got the schedule out. We've got something to focus on. We've got something real and pressing, and that's what we just got to dive straight into.
Let's do it. The schedule is out. Here's the way it sets up, you've probably seen it by now, so I won't bore you with it, but basically we'll quickly run through. We've got a home against the Patriots in week 1, at the Chiefs in week 2, Monday Night Football against the Commanders in week 3, at Carolina in week 4, Baltimore with a 1:00 home game here in week 5, Giants Sunday Night Football. Surprising Giants on Sunday Night Football there, week 6. The Browns, 1:00. That's in Cleveland. You've got the back-to-back home games after that. Eagles, Raiders, both at home. That's a national window. Eagles game 4:25. Then the absolute just diabolical storyline grab from Amazon, going with almost 1 year to the date of the Burrow snapped wrist, Thursday night in Baltimore. Again, Thursday night in Baltimore for them there. It's really gross. And Bengals fans are like, that really was supposed to be a happy day. That felt unnecessary. And then trip to LA, November 17th, bye week right before Thanksgiving. Then you get into December 1st. It's Steelers, Monday Night Football at Dallas, at Tennessee, Thursday Night Football against the Browns, a wild stretch there. Then you go Broncos, Steelers to close it out. Steelers in January 4th or 5th in a game that is guaranteed to have a max kickoff temperature of 2 degrees, as far as I'm concerned. I'm already shivering thinking about walking in to Acrisure Stadium. So there, it's kind of the schedule. My Cliff's notes on this. You start with a fast start. We kind of said this last year. It felt like a schedule that was set up for a fast start, and that didn't end up being the case. thanks to the calf injury, but it's there for you again. What did we talk about in the lead up to this, Mark? Like you want to get as many opportunities to play these new coaches, to play these new quarterbacks early in the season before they start figuring things out. Take advantage of those early mistakes. What do? You get Gerard Mayo, new head coach, first-time head coach in your opener at home. Either Drake May or Jacoby Brissett is going to be the quarterback there. Now, granted, Kansas City week 2, you know what that is going to be, but you're getting Kansas City when they have struggled early, or at least by their standards, struggled early in seasons. Then you get Jaden Daniels in prime time as a rookie, new coach, Dan Quinn, new quarterback, new ownership. You get them early on a prime time Monday Night Football game in your house. You love that. You've got new coach Dave Canales, Bryce Young in year 2. You've got that happening in week 4. 3-1, like, should be your minimum thought out of this. You know, maybe you can go to Kansas City and win, sure, but these are games that you should win. You're set up to win. And finally, if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, you think, get that fast start that they've yet to do in his time here.
Yeah, and it really feels like this is going to be the year. And I know that we've said it before, but there is no like super dangerous trip there. The Chiefs, they always sort of have that slow start where they don't really become the Chiefs until everybody says they can't be the Chiefs again. They're like, this is the season. They're finally going to start to fall off. They get midway through, and then they just start putting everything together and eking out wins and get stronger and stronger. So week 2, I like it. It's a little bit different. Let's not start with the Cleveland game early. And then you get the Chiefs a lot earlier this season. Like, let's do it. It's opposite of how we had it last year. And I'm fine with that. I like having that big early season matchup with them, surrounded by some of these cupcakes on your schedule. You can't really ask for a better start if you're the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Now, that being said, you don't know how everything's going to go. We'll see what kind of off season we're going to have. Hopefully it's a relatively normal one. And that's the big surprise this year. But yeah, the Bengals, for all the complaints that I've seen from people, you know, you can't really ask for a whole lot better start than that.
No, I don't think there's a ton to complain about on the schedule. Everybody wants to complain because that's who we are as a people, right? Like we're looking for something to complain about all the time. I'll do it. Like we can talk about what's happening in December, but there's lots of this that goes on. You've got the 3 games in 11 days. Thank you, readers, for pointing out that technically 19th from the 9th to the 19th of December is 11 days, but I'll call it 3 games with 8 days off.
I like
kind of what it is, more what it is than anything, not necessarily just the days. It's the little amount of prep and days off in there. What a stretch, because you go, I throw in December 1st there against Pittsburgh. You're bookending these 4 games. We know what Pittsburgh and Cleveland games are. These AFC North bloodbaths. They leave you where you need extra time to recover, okay? Not less. So you bookend that 4-game stretch with those 2 brutal AFC North games. You have to go to Dallas on Monday Night Football in there, and that's part of your 3 games with 8 days off, 2 on the road, 1 on Monday Night Football against Dallas, a prime time Thursday night game against Cleveland, who you've always struggled with. That stretch is kind of a defining stretch, an exhausting one. But for those that point out, rightfully so, how hard that's going to be, the NFL has done this to a few teams. The Bengals are not the only one.
Right.
Ravens, Chiefs, Steelers also have a similar 3 games, 8 days off setup, part of that being this whole Wednesday Christmas thing. But, that it doesn't make it any easier, the fact that there are a few other teams doing it. But, man, the AFC contenders really kind of having to deal with it, because when it's in December, that's the kicker to me. It's like you're already exhausted.
Yeah, that's the hard part about it. And I kind of wish that if they were going to have that slate could have been earlier, or even if you're going to rearrange those 3 games and make that a little bit easier. I think it's just brutal ending that 3 games with 8 days off like stretch with that Cleveland game, because those Thursday night games can always be such a mess anyway for guys. To have to do it against an AFC North team is brutal. At least it's at home. But, I would love to have had, maybe the Dallas game there, and you take that Browns home game on Monday Night Football. That stretch maybe makes a little bit easier for them. Still not ideal. But yeah, that late in the season, that could be a really rough one.
The only, the thing though, it's like it's full of oddities, and that's part of the fun here. I mean, before that though, you have one game in 23 days in November. And you've got this huge break because you go from the Thursday night with the mini bye on November 7th, the Chargers game on the 17th, and you're all the way to December 1st until you're playing again. So there's a big, deep breath portion of the program that you get to, but 2 Thursday games, which are notably hard to deal with. At least, we've talked a lot about the divisional AFC North road primetime thing, 2-11. Over the last 5 years, teams are in those scenarios. It's in the North. It's just been almost impossibility. We've seen it happen to the Bengals, who haven't been able to get one of those wins. At least they get one of each here. You get, and both of them on Thursdays, which are even harder on those teams, but you get one of each. The Browns have to come to Cincinnati and deal with it, and you again go to Baltimore and deal with it. So at least it's not the Bengals having to go do that and nobody giving it back to them. At least they get one of each. So there might be complaints about 2 Thursday night football games, and I'm sure the NFL PA reps are probably like, you got to be kidding me with all this. But from a competitive balance and where it matters with the schedule, I think that works out just fine.
And I know that the NFL is big business here, and they're talking about adding an extra game and all that kind of stuff. But if you even look at this schedule right now, like, those Thursdays, they could be a real problem. But like you said, there is that great stretch that they have in November with the 1 game in 23 days. Then you have that intense 4 games. At least the Steelers are at home to kick that off. And then the 3 games in 8 days. And after that, though, it kind of slows down for you because you go from that Browns game to the Denver game and then the Pittsburgh on the road to finish up. You're resting your starters in that game anyway. So like, that's not as fearsome as it could be. You're basically taking a Steelers road game off the schedule there because it's just going to be kind of a wash anyway.
Well, Tomlin will undoubtedly be playing to keep his, no losing season streak alive. So you'll be like, I mean, who knows? The Steelers have a very good team. They have one of the biggest beefs of anybody in the league. Because their schedule is insane. They have the hardest schedule without question especially down the stretch. They don't play a North game until you get into November. Their whole second half of their schedule is just AFC North and contenders. The Chiefs are in there. I mean, it is going to be wild. They have to find a way to get out to a quicker start because it's going to be wild for them down the stretch. Just a really tough ending to the season. I always like having the harder games at the end because I think things change so dramatically. I mean, we saw 60-plus quarterbacks start games last year. You can get a number of those. The Steelers are going to play some backup quarterbacks in that stretch. That's just the way the league is going to go, no matter how tough they look right now, and make those more winnable. You'd rather have that at the end than at the beginning, likely.
But what if you're a team like them that has 2 quarterbacks? Wouldn't you then you take those big games early because you've got another starter waiting in the wings anyway?
They're built for the attrition.
They're
built for the attrition. They're playing the 2 quarterback system so they can be ready at the end of the season to take.
And you would love it to be able to complain, right? Like you could be like, all right, so we lost all these hard games with Russ. So now it's time to make the switch to Fields. That's what we're going to do now is because it was so hard. It's actually the quarterback's fault. And you reset with the next guy and the easier slate. Now they've got to figure their stuff out right away. Because like you said, if they don't, it's good. The back half of that schedule is going to just hit them right in the face.
No question. All right. Let's get to what really matters here. Let's talk about trips. Okay. You're listening to this. You're a big fan. You're thinking about what games am I going to attend, whether you live in Cincinnati, whether you're talking about coming in from outside, whether you're in Europe and you want to come in for a game. Let's talk about best road trips to start. Here's a couple of things. I think it's been clear by the way some of our shows have ended and started recently. We're a family show, and we're all about the kids. It might be families have uncomfortable, awkward conversations, and that's kind of where we go sometimes. But this is sneaky here. How about Chicago with the preseason games? Preseason games are always good for kids. Chicago is a great town to take your kids to, by the way. Tons of awesome stuff there to do. The Cubs are home that whole weekend with all day games. You could do like a Cubs day game, a Bengals preseason game. If you can, preseason games are so low intensity. You can get up close, but say you're on the road, you did the road trip thing. You'll probably get some interaction with players because they'll see a kid with their jersey on from the Bengals perspective. Sneaky if you're looking for a fun kids road trip. August, Chicago, great weather theoretically. I would keep that. That's one that no one's probably talking about but we think about the families here.
You're right.
I think that's a good.
No one's talking about that one. And that's one I didn't even consider is the preseason thing. But you're right. That is a great time. If you're going to take kids on the road, you don't want to take them to Pittsburgh in January. That's not when you want to take them to a road Bengals game. And Chicago is an awesome city. If you're coming from Cincinnati, that drive is really manageable with kids. You throw a movie or season of Bluey on that tablet, and that gets you pretty much halfway there anyway. And throwing the Cubs games into it, that's a fun thing to take the kids to as well. You're not going to get into fist fights with Bears fans at a preseason game. You're going to get to see some of their young stars in action. And, we'll get to see what Jake Browning can do to that Bears defense probably.
Yeah, some Logan Woodside observations, from your 10-year-old. I love all the ideas. I think it's great. As far as the real season goes, though, here's a few additions here that I tracked down as I like to look at what else is going on in these places. If you love Sting, this Bengals schedule is for you. Who knew you could catch Sting in LA and New York playing in the same weekends that the Bengals are out there playing the Chargers and when they are in New York against the Giants? It's the Sting season for you. So congratulations for Sting lovers who also love the Bengals and were looking to make sure they caught this tour.
Yeah, that Venn diagram, it is Christmas morning for everybody in the middle of that. They are loving it. This was made for them.
Fantastic. Charlotte is the big winner here. Like you got the Carolina game, which was already serious potential to be great just because it's one the Bengals don't go too often, but is a fantastic city. And you get it right in prime. Late September is just great. The Charlotte Wine and Food Festival is going on. If you like wine and food, can't recommend that. I like wine and food, especially
they go well together. Wine and food.
They go great together. Wine and food and football. I mean, it's really where we live. Talk about Venn diagrams. I mean, it's a circle.
Wine, food, football, family, all in the middle of that diagram.
That's right. So, but Charlotte is such a great city. That is going to be a great trip. There's lots of good direct flights still available if you're interested, which is also a big part of these trips that you want to look for. So,
because I thought that was the big winner. A little too much.
I wouldn't want to drive it. You certainly could. But that's a decent haul. Also, Charlotte, good time of year. Asheville, awesome stopover if you want to pop over right nearby there and do an Asheville day or two on your way into the Bengals. I highly recommend Asheville. If you like beer, do people here like beer? Lots of great beer in Asheville. Do you like old aging hippies? Another great place for Asheville. Love Asheville. Aren't you going to Asheville soon?
Yeah, since we're hyping up Asheville anyway, go there June 13th. I'll be doing shows there on Thursday, June 13th, and then on Father's Day night, I've got a show there too. So if you don't want to go to see the game against Carolina, maybe you just want to go to Asheville, period. There is aging hippies and plenty of beer and stand-up comedy there in June. It is a great city if you are going to drive to Charlotte. When you're looking at the trips, though, I'm kind of bummed. I wanted Nashville in like October, early November. Nashville's a quick, easy drive. That would have been fun. I don't like that one in December. I don't want to go see, Bengals South in December.
I've been there in the cold before, obviously a playoff game, and we've seen what that looks like. It's not super. It's definitely not as fun when it's freezing cold. So that one takes it on the chin. Charlotte up, Tennessee down, unfortunately there. Other things to pair up. Although I will say, save your Nashville trip. You can go see Justin Timberlake. If you're a Timberlake guy, that weekend on that Thursday leading into that game, you can and make it a long December weekend.
Now, does he have a
Avoid your
concert or is
family.
he just hanging out? I don't know if he's still like
He's just going to be
performing or
sitting. He's just going to be sitting around, you know, just entertaining people on the street corners, I think, talking about
signing
stuff. No, he's
copies
playing
of instant
Bridgestone.
CDs.
He's playing Bridgestone Arena on the 12th. The Thursday game in Baltimore, you know, we're a kids show, like we said. Stick around, 10 a.m. on that Saturday, Paw Patrol Live. How about that?
Wow.
Bring your kids, you know, keep your kids up real late in a hostile environment in Baltimore. And then hang around Baltimore, go see your favorite locations from The Wire with your kids, and then go to Paw Patrol Live on a Saturday. I mean, we've just put together a great weekend for you. You're welcome.
Yeah, you can spend that entire drive. Like we talked about them watching stuff on the drive to Chicago. Go drive out to Baltimore, have your kids alternating between episodes of The Wire and episodes of Paw Patrol. That way they can get the full range of the Baltimore experience.
That's
You
it.
can
I
see
do
Paw
have
Patrol
two.
live. You can see The Wire.
I do have two good college football connections to these trips.
Now we're talking.
The game in Los Angeles, the day before, Nebraska at USC at the Coliseum. Just, I don't know if anybody cares about Nebraska. Zach Taylor does. Cam Taylor-Britt does. But I just think at USC, the Coliseum, history there, a cool game to check out while you're already out in LA. But this is really the one. Here's the Dan Horde Moeger special. Okay. As if you needed more reason to root for the University of Cincinnati's football team to put together some special magic. The Big 12 championship game is December 7th in Jerry World. The Bengals play there on the 9th on Monday Night Football. All you need is UC to get themselves into the Big 12 championship game. And here you have the perfect combo for that weekend. Or just going to the Big 12 championship game could be fun anyway, no matter who's playing in it. So maybe just buy those tickets today. Then if you don't want to go, sell them to whatever's teams make it for a massive profit for yourself. Also an option, and help pay for your trip out to see the Bengals play the Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it's a win-win. You either get to see UC and have a great Cincinnati road trip there, or you get to sell your fans at a huge markup to a bandwagon fan and sell your tickets.
I can't see it going any better. All right. Let's take this opportunity to bring in our friend and yours, our guy, Eric Stanios here with you. What's going on?
Yo!
Realtor for the Stars. What's going on,
Paul? What's up, Mark? How you guys doing?
What's going on, Stanio?
Yeah.
We are doing great. For those of you that know, you should by now because you're loyal listeners to the show. You know our guy Eric Stanio. He's the #1 real estate YouTube channel in Cincinnati. Go there. It's still crushing us. We're working on it. We're trying to catch you. Okay. At Team Stanio, SZTANYO. Anything you need to know about coming to Cincinnati. If you're coming in and you're like, you know what? I should live here. I'm coming in for a game. Love this schedule. I should live here. You can know that before you get there because all kinds of videos and background on the markets here, buying homes, what the city is all about, neighborhoods, all there on his YouTube page. Go check it out. Find your home, strengthen your family. All right, you have a question. You have a question for us, of course. You got a scheduled question. What do you got?
I got a scheduled question. Today? Yeah, and by the way, again, the urinal conversation this week has been off the chains. I think, the response has been overwhelming. I'm sure plumbers are booking up all over town right now with installations.
Look what we're doing. Look what we're giving back to the community.
And you guys were you were making fun of my high school, my friends just coming over and peeing, and they were reaching out to me. They're like, why didn't you tell them about the pool and the sauna?
You're peeing in the pool too?
No. Jeez, man. No, here's the thing. My dad, brilliant mind, had it all planned out. A lot of sons. We had a pool in the backyard. He's very handy. So he built this sauna. So the basement bathroom had the sauna, the shower, the regular toilet, and the urinal. It was like the whole thing.
Wow.
And I didn't share last week because I didn't want to come off as sounding pretentious, to the Growler Clanyo. What is this thing called?
We're working on it.
Okay.
We'll get there. We're going to get into that later.
But anyway,
we're working on it.
And then I had my attorney reach out and he said, thank you so much, because I think I've been able to convince my wife to put a urinal in the house now. And I'm just like, hey, I'm doing my part to serve the city here. Anyway. Okay. Question.
Yes.
Question. Okay. Schedule question.
Yes.
Joe Burrow put out a tweet before the drop of the schedule that said, the tweet was 18 games, question mark, 2 bye weeks. And so we all know that whatever Joe Burrow says here in Cincinnati tends to happen. My question is what Joe Burrow says on Twitter going to happen nationally? Does he have reach beyond Cincinnati to the entire NFL? Are we going to see 2 bye weeks?
Yes. And it won't have anything to do with Joe Burrow's tweet. I think, look, the commissioner, they wanted to get 18 games in last time, and the one thing that the PA pushed back on was getting it back to 17 and saying, no, let's wait on that and save that concession for another time. This is coming. Like this is the biggest chip that the players have, and they can use it to get whatever it is that they decide that they want. Whether that's used poorly can be up to others' interpretations, but that can get them a lot of money. It can get them percentage points that they want to get in the next CBA whenever that comes. That's something that's happening. But the thing is, it wasn't just adding one game. It was always adding 2 bye weeks, because that is more TV revenue that they can sell. If there's anything we've learned this past week, is there are not enough places that they can sell more TV. I mean, you could do a whole week that's just on different streaming services and make everyone have to subscribe to them. So you add another bye week, you're adding another week to sell to TVs. So you now have 20 weeks. You have the Super Bowl on President's Day, and they have everything. So President's Day weekend, I should say. You have everything that you possibly could want. They've wanted this forever. This has been the dream and the ideal setup. So Burrow may have thought he was saying like, hey, give me 2 bye weeks. Yeah, they were definitely going to do that. They'd love to give you 4.
So the NFL is psyoping Joe Burrow into, is that what's happening here?
Hey, if we get the President's Day Super Bowl, that's all I care about. That's the big one.
Give everybody that Monday off after the Super Bowl.
We need that because the kids can stay up and watch the Super Bowl finally. And speaking about kids, Daniel, we got a question for you.
All right.
It's the end of the school year. Is coming up in the next week or two for a lot of schools. What does that do to the housing market? Is this going to be like your Super Bowl season? Is it really heating up for you?
Yeah, we're already in it. My wife's so happy that today's our last day. She's like, yes. So yes, real estate is definitely seasonal with the weather, especially here in Cincinnati, in most weather climates. But really it's already happened. It really kind of ramps up starting in January, February. Median prices start going up, and they hit their peak in May and June. Because it's not just school. It is school, but it's also just when things turn green. People want to take pictures of their homes when there's flowers out and everything's not brown and gray. So April and May is really where you're seeing the most amount of listings on the market. The highest prices, and that all gets bid up. The highest median price tends to be May and June, kind of holds it there, but goes a little bit down in July and August, because by the time, if you're listing your house in August, it's almost a little bit too late because people are settling back in. They don't want to move right when the school year is starting. So, but it happens every year because they see the prices from June, July, and they're like, my neighbor Joe sold his house for that. I know mine is worth this. And they do it in August, and it's too late. Then they have to lower the price. So, we are right in the busy season. It goes up and then it goes down, and school is definitely a big part of it.
Good to know. Great stuff. You can get all of this great information and more if you join the Stanyo Clanyo. Right. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Team Stanyo. Go follow on Instagram, of course, and that is eStanyo. And of course, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, email directly info@Team Stanyo, or go to www.teamstanyo.com and connect with our guy. Join the Clanyo. Build a urinal. Like, these are the two things that are happening now. So there's so many things that can happen for you. Great to talk to you, Eric. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See you.
That's going to be his new company slogan. It's going to be join the Clanyo, build a urinal. People are going to be so confused. Just so confused.
I love it. We're giving back. We're giving back to the community. People might say to us, you guys really don't do anything for the city of Cincinnati except just try to be funny and talk about the Bengals. Like, yeah, but what about all the urinals? Look at what we did there. Huh?
Yeah, that's really Stanyo's work. You were the one that said serial killers have urinals. You know,
It's
if
true.
anything, you should be terrified that there's going to be so many serial killers in the tri-state area. Maybe Sanyo's attorney is a serial killer. Have you considered that? He's always wanted to have the urinal. Maybe Sanyo needs a new attorney is what I'm worried about here. This guy could end up with a Netflix documentary in 15 years, and it's all going to be, you're going to be part of it. They're going to have a clip of the Growler, and this is where he finally got the courage to be who he really was. And then
hell
he just
yeah,
goes
talk
on a
about
killing
life
spree.
goals. Get your podcast onto some documentary about serial killers. Like, that's great. That's a legacy right there. I'm in.
Yeah, you're talking about how we don't do enough for the city, and then you inspire some serial killer that just terrifies the region. That's the reach this show can have. We got a great question from Sanyo. Are you ready to dive into some of our other schedule
we've
questions?
got a lot of questions. He's kicking off our question segment today.
This is from Blaine in Alberta. That's in Canada. I know that you're bad with geography, so I'm just letting you know. He says, as a Bengals fan in Canada is. I want to get down to my first game in Cincinnati. So my question is, which home game do you think is best to make a trip out of? Something early in the season when weather's better, a divisional game, primetime game? Thanks, fellas. Love the pod. Thanks, Blaine. Thank you for your question and your feedback. What do you think is the best for them to come to?
Yeah, we had a couple of questions. I like getting questions that, we don't think a lot about that often about people coming in here. We should be better about that. That's a great point. I think there's two that are pretty clearly, for me, the best. And I don't want to bring people, I guess if you're coming from Canada, anything's better weather-wise, but I don't want to ship you down here in December, when you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know.
But what if he's a big hockey guy, though? We got to look at the Cyclones schedule. That's something I didn't even consider.
Forgot
Canadian
about the
guy wants hockey.
Yeah, that's true. Big season, chasing the Kelly Cup. But I would say week 3 Monday Night Football. I mean, look, Monday Night Football, that's almost certainly going to be their Ring of Honor game because they always do that in their early primetime games. So that it's just you hope you're going to get to see a win with them playing Washington. That just feels like they'll probably do some kind of, they're going to they're going to stripe or do a whiteout. They were kind of putting the two up against each other on social media yesterday. So you're going to get some kind of a cool atmosphere, good weather, more than likely. Monday Night Football, you can't really beat that if you're coming into town.
Especially from
you get
Canada.
the full weekend to do other stuff in Cincinnati. And then Monday Night Football, and then you can go home on Tuesday. So that to me is the number one. I really like 425 kicks. Bengals Eagles is going to be an awesome game in week 8. Two really good teams. I just the 4 o'clock, you're not up super late. That's an old man me talking, but you're not up super late, but you get a little extra time to tailgate and enjoy the scene. A big game that those 4 o'clock games do end up having a big atmosphere feel because it gets darker as you get to the later part of that game, and it can be a lot of fun. I like that Eagles game too as a number 2, but I think clearly if you're coming into town and you want to get the full experience, I think that Washington Monday Night Football is a pretty easy one.
And what I like about that too is, there's a case that you could make for a Thursday game, but the Washington game is going to be one that you're going to likely see a victory. That's one that you can feel pretty good about. And having that at the end of the trip to look forward to is a lot better than going into a city for a Thursday game and then just having the rest of the weekend. So yeah, I think that's got to be the clear winner. If you're coming from Canada, if you're coming from out of town to see the Bengals, that's got to be the move. Our next question, this is from Cameron. Happy schedule release day. I want to know which aspect of the Bengals schedule seems like a tougher draw to you guys. We've kind of touched on both these issues so far. So do you think it's tougher playing the 3 games in a span of 10 days? See, Cameron can't do math. He should have said just 3 games with 8 days off. So do you think that's tougher, or do you think it's tougher with the 2 Thursday night games?
These guys have done Thursday night games. It's not hard to do that. I think when you get into that tight stretch, when you consider that it's 2 road games in that 3 and 8 days off, including Monday Night Football at Dallas, there's just a longer trips, less prep time, and it ending with it being an AFC North game. I just, that's way harder than you can prepare for one Thursday game. You get the mini bye after, and you get the mini bye after on this, but you're so beat up with that combination. Again, I would throw that Steelers thing. I know it's a full week before, but man, we've seen around here, like, you come out of those Steelers games and feel like you've been in a war. And so to start it off, to get you already not feeling super and then having to do that to me is much harder than just the fact that there's 2 Thursday games. And I guess they're kind of connected in some ways, but
I mean, yeah, I don't love the 2 Thursday games either, though. Don't get me wrong. Like when you see the level of play in some of those Thursday games, some of the injuries that come out of those Thursday games, having 2 of them does kind of suck. But and even with the Bengals, listen, I like doing the schedule release stuff. It's a fun event. I love all the content that you get out there from the teams doing the videos, and everybody takes their best swing. But at the end of the day, obviously, it's going to come down to Joe Burrow's health. And there's so many times when I look at a Bengals schedule, I'm like, well, that's a win. That's a loss. And then they surprise you. They go into San Francisco and just crush. There's a game. Oh, the Texans, I think that's going to be an easy one. I know that maybe it'll be a little closer than I think, but we're going to get a win here, and it doesn't always go your way. So at the end of the day, there are some tough stretches, but every team's got tough stretches. You said that Kansas City has got the 3-10 situation, or 3-11. But the Bengals, we've seen it before. They can run off some incredible streaks, some incredible win streaks when they're playing hot. But when you're looking
let's talk about the 2022. I mean, you mentioned it, the 2022 season. The whole narrative was about how are they going to survive this tough stretch at the end, and they won every game. They rallied around it. They play. I always say put those at the end because Joe Burrow has been an absolute assassin in December and January and really in November. I mean, he's been unbelievable. 17-3 in his last 20 games in December and January or November. I wrote it. I can't remember the exact stat. That's poor that I can't pull it off the top of my head, but 17-3 in his last 20 games in those situations. That's who they've been. They've been a team that's gotten better as the year's gone on when he has played late into the season and been able to bank all those reps. They've been just killers against other teams. So I think that's part of this too.
Yeah, it's great because there's already the built-in excitement at the start of a season. So when you start it with some of those less interesting games, that'll be more fun for us as fans to watch. And then you're right. When Burrow's playing his best is when he hits that tough stretch. Our next question's from Tony. He says he's one of the few that prefers to watch the Bengals against NFC opponents rather than the AFC North because they just feel like low-scoring bloodbaths with tons of injuries and dirty plays. The NFC games add new matchups we never see and a refreshing intrigue instead of the usual seething hatred. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like matchups that we don't see often. I think that makes it more fun. It feels fresh. From a Bengals team perspective, they traditionally have done really well against teams that haven't seen them before, specifically with Burrow. The North, the division teams, they really understand there's a certain way that you have to play Burrow that requires a ton of patience. And you can't say, they're just nickel and diming us over and over again. Let's get more aggressive, or let's move to some man-to-man. And then what happens next, and that's how they can blow games out. We've seen them do that against teams that are unfamiliar with them over the years, and you get some of that when you cross over into the NFC. So the Bengals love that. We've seen them do that to a bunch of opponents, but for that perspective, it's good. I like anything fresh and new and a chance to not feel like you're rehashing the same 5 storylines over and over again. So yeah, I'm with you. They put 3. I didn't expect 3 of the 4 NFC East games to end up in prime time, but I do think it's fun because they're unique matchups that you don't always see.
Yeah, and you know what? For a Bengals perspective too, like you feel a little bit better going into a Sunday night football game against the Giants than you would at Cleveland or at Baltimore or something like that. And those games are, the division's just so tough. They are a lot of bloodbaths. There are a lot of good teams, and there's no days off in those. So I can see the appeal from just enjoying watching them play some of the other teams, especially when you feel a little bit better going into it. Our next question, it's a combo. We had a couple people hit on this same theme. Nick and Brian were 2 of them. Shout out to them. But we talked a little bit about how this could be potentially a fast start opportunity for the Bengals. Everything's set up for it. And they want to know, so does the slow start, is that all 100% just Joe Burrow being healthy? Or do you think it has to do with their approach to the training camp / preseason? The Steelers go full pads and go crazy and go balls to the wall. They're ready to go. And the Bengals kind of take the lighter approach so they can be healthy going into the season mostly, and then stronger later. So which of those approaches do you think makes more sense?
Show me all of the Steelers playoff victories.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
recently, sure.
It's been a while. Look, I don't have. You can win games and you can beat your team up and have them ready for the season. What's more important? Feeling like you've given your team the best chance to win in September, or the best chance to win in December and January? And the Bengals take the philosophy of let's have the best team possible in December and January. That means being lighter, using the first 4 weeks does sometimes feel like a bit of a preseason. They don't want it to be, but you are getting guys going and you're focusing on the long game here. And that has paid off for them. They've been playing great at the end of the season when you're trying to win the Super Bowl, which is the one thing that they've done here. They haven't done here that Pittsburgh has done 6 times. Okay. They need to do that. And that's where the focus is. I prefer that philosophy. I'm not a buyer into, whether it's Tomlin or just the general old school philosophy of harder preseason, play everybody, hard training camps and off season. I mean, we're out here, we could be talking about load management, especially if the season gets even longer, but it's already long and hard enough. We already see attrition everywhere. Do whatever you can to keep your team healthy and bought in and not worn out at the end of the season. This was a Marvin Lewis conversation back in the day. I mean, this was how Marvin treated it. He ran his team hard. He was blue collar, old school Steelers. Like, that was the old school philosophy that they switched away from when they brought in Zach Taylor. And look, we know what Marv's record was in the playoffs, and I'm not holding that against him or those teams. I'm not going to try to go down that road, but there's a different focus with this. And I think that is where the Bengals are. And I don't have a problem with it. Lose some games early in the season, but make a run to the Super Bowl, win 10 games in a row and end up in the AFC Championship game. I more point to that and the health that they've had. I mean, even last year with Burrow's injury being, us talking about injuries a lot, and there were a few, they were generally still a pretty healthy team. And they were really healthy. And they were really healthy in the previous 2 years. The offensive line played every single game. You're right. I mean, I think you stick with that philosophy. The NFL does end up being so much about attrition, and that needs to be a primary focus, and too many teams lose sight of that, trying to win every single game in September, when they should be thinking about making sure that they're winning games in December and January.
And and it's not like Burrow's thing was a fluke injury. Obviously, it's not like it had anything to do with the approach. Both of them, even the calf, it's not like they were going too hard. Maybe he pushed himself too hard where he was feeling a little discomfort and tried to force himself through it. But it wasn't like Burrow shouldn't be working out at all during the offseason either. Our next question here. Oh, this is from Michael in LA, and he's coming for you on this one. He is a Bengals fan, a Cincy transplant to Los Angeles. He was super psyched for all the Bengals fans to come out to LA for the Chargers game. Then this week you go dumping on my city, saying it's one of the worst road games to go to on the calendar. What gives, man? There's a night out Friday, beach day Saturday, tailgate and game Sunday. Not that complicated, my man. Get in my back, please, Mark. That is from Michael in LA.
First of all, you're right. Okay. It is not complicated. I just am not a fan of getting around to all of those places in LA. That's a part of my issue here. Okay. Nothing is necessarily close. Where am I going out? Am I driving into downtown LA? I don't know. I'm not into like a night LA scene. So that's not me. Now, beach, yeah. I'll go to Santa Monica and hang out there all day and have a nice meal and go back to my hotel and get to the back. Now I got to deal with traffic going to the game and the LAX and the airport. That's all. It's me. I get it. Like, many people live there and love it. You're exactly right. I'm still probably scarred from the week in the Super Bowl where they had us all staying downtown and not really being close to anything we wanted to get to outside. And then the team was at UCLA and the game was in Inglewood, and I spent the whole week in traffic, and it's personal for me now. That's what it is. It's just bad memories.
Sorry that they don't have Paw Patrol live there that week for you, Paul. But I've got your back, Michael. LA is a great city, great place to visit. Now, that being said, I haven't been there in a while. The last time I went to LA was for a party at the Playboy Mansion. So, like in my head, LA is a great time. I highly put that at the top. If you're going to LA, do it like I did it. Go to a party at the Playboy Mansion in the early or late 2000s. That's the way to do it.
How did you? Great time. I'm gonna need to know what happened there.
I had a lot of drinks. I met the Black Ghostbuster and a few other celebrities. I got a tour of the mansion grounds when I first got there from some guy that was on an NBC show. And then by the end of the night, I was giving that tour to everybody else. So I just took myself as like a little ambassador. I'm like, hey, you want to see the monkey cages? And giving those tours out to people. This was back when the UFC was like still getting going. So they had cage fighting happening in the backyard of the Playboy Mansion. Like they had a little real ring and some, I don't know if it was like a minor league UFC or whatever, but they had like real fights going on. And it was like the 5th most interesting thing happening. That's the crazy thing, is you had cage fighters going at it full tilt, and everybody's just kind of looking at it like it's an art installation, and then moving on to the chocolate covered strawberries and one of the many bars there. It was very surreal, but that shows you how long ago it was, because the Playboy Mansion is no longer a thing and no longer the place to be.
No, it's not. But Winston's back. I mean, Ernie Hudson, who you met that night, Winston's back big time with the new Ghostbusters. So really, it's the one goes up, one goes down. Now Winston, more popular than the Playboy Mansion. If I would have told you that when you were going through that day, you would have been in absolute disbelief.
Absolutely, because there were other celebrities there too that I'm like, no, this guy's going to be bigger. R.I.P. Michael Clark Duncan. I met him there that night, and he's no longer with us. He was wearing a Chicago Bears hat, and he was very confused because I had some drinks by that point and thought it was a Cincinnati Reds hat. So I went up to him trying to talk about the Reds because I just saw the C, and the end of that night was not the best for me. But
yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you what,
highly recommend
one of these episodes we have in the future where we have to just figure out what we're going to talk about because nothing's really happening. I just want more stories about your night at the Playboy Mansion. We can just continue to go through that. I want more of what Winston or Ernie Hudson was telling you about about Bill Murray and the old school Ghostbusters movies. I hope that there's lots of stories there. Maybe we could get him on and see if he remembers you.
Yeah, see if he remembers me. Right. I'm sure that's going to be high on his list of things that he remembers from the Playboy Mansion.
Look, when he's doing the Ghostbusters junket, he does any media that shows up in his face. Let's send him an email. Let's get him on, and you can refresh him.
Yeah, it's just an ambush. Instead of ambush light, it's just a full-on ambush of Ernie Hudson as we're like, hey, do you remember me, Ernie? I was with you at the Playboy Mansion. Yeah, I'm sure
when
he's
he
not
says
going to
no,
remember the
where does the
Playmates
interview go after that?
Yeah, how can you forget me, a young comedian, and instead you remember the Playmates? That's outrageous. Our next question, moving along from the schedule, and we did get a lot of great questions. Thank you for sending them to TheGrowlerPodcast@gmail.com. A lot of them we're going to get to next week as well. But getting back into a little bit more team stuff, Trey Hendrickson seemed to do a 180 on his trade request in some of the retirement talk that we heard earlier. This question's from Dale. Do you think that he was offered a handshake deal on a new contract, or at least the promise of a renegotiation when it's legal? Because the whole 180 sounds a little bit like he got some behind the scenes assurances. So what's your take on that, Paul?
That absolutely in no way happened. There was the only handshake deal would have been, here's a handshake. You're going to play under your contract or you're not going to make that money.
So why do you think it was such a big 180 then? Because it did seem like the whole, and I know he wasn't the one out there pounding the pavement about the trade request and that it kind of came from behind the scenes, but it does seem like a much different tone.
I think he recognized how misguided that trade request was, and that he had zero chance of winning, that it wouldn't make anyone budge. And when he realized that he was just banging his head against a wall trying that, he said, well, guess I'll just turn around and go the other way where I'm not banging my head against a wall and play football and try to win. And I just think it's a realization of how misguided the trade request was in the first place, and might as well go win football games.
But it's one of the fun things too about the offseason is how quickly these controversies flare up and then go away. And then you also get to see who in the national media really pays attention, because Trey Hendrickson was talking about how much he loves the team, how much he's excited to play and win this season and bring a Super Bowl to the city, whatever. But you still have the national media guys that haven't been paying attention to that are talking about, well, the Bengals have to deal with T. Higgins requesting a trade. Trey Hendrickson is not happy in Cincinnati. You see that pop up, and you can kind of see who's a few days behind the news. You know, you've got Joe Burrow underthrowing Jermaine Burton in a clip that comes out, and everyone's worried about that. Then the next day connects on a long bomb, and now that one's extinguished as well.
He's back.
These are fun.
Dude, the over-analyzation of like basically warm-up videos of people from these camps and OTAs is the craziest thing that happens in the offseason. Like, this could not be less serious. Like, you can see some stuff, like, just stop. I mean, watching this guy, watching the first round draft pick, you know, practice 3 steps in his offensive line drill does not tell us anything. Stop saying that it does. Slants against air, even deep balls against air. It means a little bit more with Burrow because you're wondering to see what those deep balls look like right now. Fine. Let's stop. Okay. They can't even guard these guys yet. They're not even allowed to like put a defender on them yet. So let's please stop.
I say ramp it up. Give us all the intensity you've got. We're going to need it to carry us through this offseason. Keep sending your questions to TheGrowlerPodcast@gmail.com. One of the biggest topics we've had lately is the fan initiation, fan baptism ideas. We got some great ideas on that. That's we're very schedule heavy today. We're hitting the news. We're doing that. So we're not going to get into all of those ideas for the bandwagon fans. We'll get into that next week. So keep sending those ideas. Now that we see the schedule, we know that, wow, this is shaping up great for the Bengals to go, 15-2 or what was your prediction? Like, I think what did you do in the Athletic? You had a number on there.
I had 12-5. I had 12-5. Yeah.
I'm going to keep trying to get you to pick the Bengals to win the Super Bowl again, just so you can get all that hate.
Keep trying. You could try this every episode.
We're going to get there. We're going to just beat you down until you're finally ready to declare us Super Bowl champs again. But the point is, we'll get to that stuff next week. There's going to be a lot of people that want to jump on that bandwagon when they read your schedule release feedback in the Athletic. They see that 12-5. They're going to get excited. Those people are coming. How do we initiate them? Those are the ideas that we need from you. The other homework that we got this week were suggestions for our fans, right? Our listeners to the show. Which, by the way, shout out Kyle. I met one of our listeners in the middle of one of my daughter's soccer games. I'm coaching little 4-year-olds in soccer, and at halftime he came up. I thought he was a parent that was going to complain about what position I had his little kid in, and he's like, "Hey, big fan of the show. Heard your voice out there. I know you've talked about soccer. Are you Mark Shallif?" I'm like, "Yeah, but we got to go. We got to go coach soccer." Now's not the time to, explain why Paul feels the way he does about the draft or this or that and get into it. But I do like meeting our listeners out there in the world.
I ask all of you to approach Mark when he looks busiest with his kids. Like, that is actually when he's looks the most intense. This is all I ask of any listener here. Make it uncomfortable. I mean, when he's like, maybe when he's actually in the huddle giving advice, then that's a good time. Or if you see him like kind of stressed, looking busy, like maybe he's in traffic, right? Get in front of him, throw your blinkers on, get out, go back to the car and just tell him, "Hey, I saw you behind me. Let's talk a little bit about some of your thoughts, on stand up."
I mean, my thing is the next time just approach me before the game. His kids were on the other team. I would have taken it easier. I would have called the dogs off from my squad or set your kid up for a goal. If that's the time to do it. We like to give back to the community, whether it's urinals or anything, So if you want your kids to score a goal in a soccer game, just come to me beforehand and we'll set it up. Well, especially at age 4, you can kind of organize that a little bit better. So if your kids had a rough season, they really want that moment of glory, you can grab me before the game. That's the comp that we'll give to you. And I'm sure that you'll make a similar offer with your T-ball teams and
no
how you
question.
Can really set up our listeners. But we were looking for names, right, for our fans. And we got some suggestions. I'm going to run a few of these by you and see what you think. This one's from William. He says, for the Growler fan base, how about the Growlings? How do you feel about the Growlings? Yay or nay?
The Growlings? I don't know about that. It feels too much. Well, the Groundlings is a place in improv, right?
Yep, it is a
and
famous
then
improv place.
The Gremlins. It was I liked Gizmo from the Gremlins, but I feel like it's maybe too close of a combination of those two.
All right, this one's from Tony. He says there's a clear-cut answer for what to call your listeners: the ambush, because a group of tigers is called an ambush of tigers or a streak of tigers. With the advent of ambush light, he said that this could be another applicable thing. You could run with it. So, how do you feel about the ambush?
I'd probably rather stay away. I think that adds to our ambush light section. But
you would have to explain the tiger thing though, too, to everybody.
I didn't realize that immediately. No.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
so now I feel like
you definitely can't be explaining something. We've got to know enough problems with the Growler being the name of the podcast of worrying about explaining. We found out later. So I don't want to have to go back down that route again if we're talking about the ambush.
It does. Yeah. It sort of sounds like we're a gang at that point. Like, oh, we got a lot. The ambush has really been active lately around town. Another option here we got was Groupies, a mashup of Growler and Groupie.
There's just no way we could be that close to
Groupies.
Groping and groupie. No, groupies. No, I don't want any. We can't.
Yeah, that does not work. This one's from Scott. How do you feel about the grunts? Like army growling grunts.
The grunts? I feel like that's demoralizing to our fans.
The grunts.
Yeah,
they're really.
We're not better than anyone. I feel like that's there's like a superiority thing going on there. Grunts, I think of like, generals and lieutenants looking down on the lowest that they send out there to go die in the trenches. That's not what this is.
Yeah, I like the blue collar feel of our listeners, but you're right. We don't want to put ourselves on a pedestal above all of them. This next one is just for Paul Dehner fans, the Daniacs. How do you like that? If you're just a Paul Dehner fan, maybe you like the show, but you like reading you on The Athletic. How do you feel about Daniacs?
I don't think my name should be involved.
Oh man, now speaking as a stand-up, I've got having a weird last name with Shalafu, and I know Stanio's got to relate to that too. He's got his Clanyo. I've got Shala fans, and they're proud to wear that moniker. So I feel like Daniacs. I feel like you should be embracing that more than you are. So maybe let that marinate. See how you feel next week about the Daniacs.
I'll put it on the back burner. I'm not a fan of my name being involved in it though.
Well, we had somebody else suggest the Who Daners too, so I don't know if you're probably gonna just shoot that one down as well. Bengal Lights. How do you feel about Bengal Lights? Because they're trying for a Who Dey Light connection. Bengal Lights.
It's okay. I'm not wowed. It needs to feel. I don't know. It needs. Yeah. It's all about vibes right off the top, and none of those gave me like the immediate love vibes. That's all.
Yeah, and the problem with that is it's too close to just the team. We need something that's distinct for the Growler and also can apply to all three shows rather than just the Balds Don't Lie or PD&J or Who Dey Light. Like it would be easier if you just had an overall Growler fan nickname.
Yeah.
Somebody else suggested Jungle Junkies. Kind of the same thing where it's just too clear. That's a Bengals thing, not a Growler thing. And then we got one from Danny B. He's a father of 2 and 4-year-old boys. So he's a boy dad coming in with this one, but he likes the dad segments that we do. And so he took this from Bluey season 2, episode 1, Hammer Barn. And he's proposing that the collective listenership be called the Growler Barn, as in let's go to the Growler Barn for things we didn't know we needed. Or there's some really, really weird stuff coming out of the Growler Barn today.
I personally love this. If I was trying to do the ultimate inside joke on this, I would say, but again, having to explain it to the non-Blueys. I mean, I know there's only like 5 people that listen to this podcast that aren't also big Bluey fans. But that seems like a stretch to have to explain, but I love it. I love where your head's at. I'm on board with it. And of all of these, it's probably my favorite, but I don't know if it's there because of the explanation aspect.
Right. And just like we had to do with the Brown nicknames, where Brownsers kind of overtook that top slot, Growler Barn's fine for now. Don't stop trying is what we're saying, because we're going to lock this in before the start of the season. So keep sending those ideas to TheGrowlerPodcast@gmail.com. We will get there, and we're going to have a name that we're all happy with and lock into.
Yes. Where are you at next, Mark? Where should we
So this
send the
Saturday,
Growler Barn out to?
Yeah, the Growler Barn can come out to Robinson, Illinois, which I still need to look up where that is exactly. I'm there on Saturday at a place called Hollywood Bar or Theater or something there. There's not that many places in Robinson, Illinois. You should be able to
just walk around. You'll find it.
Throw my name and the name of the city into Google. You'll figure it out. After that, I'm at the Des Moines, Iowa Funny Bone. And then in June 13th in Asheville, great town, great comedy city. I love going to Asheville. So I'm there June 13th. And then on Father's Day, in between that, the 14th and 15th, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina at Wits End Comedy Club. That's another, we're talking about great trips for football games. This is just a great summer trip. Go to Charleston, awesome city. You can see me at the new comedy club there and come out to a show. This past weekend, I was doing the Don't Tell shows at in Columbus. And I think that you'll enjoy this because these are like super cool, hip shows, right? They're pop-up venues. And one week they're in a sporting goods store. Next week they're in an art studio and whatever. And you buy tickets without knowing the location. They email it to you day of. It's BYOB. So it's mostly people in their young 20s, early 20s, like the young cool kids, right? This one was held at a dance studio in Columbus. And so everybody's showing up. They took over one of the rooms and had 100 chairs in there, lights. Everything was very professional. But when I got there, there were still dance classes going on at this Thursday show. And so I went to the green room, which is in the back of this building, and I got a beer. And so I'm walking through the lounge, the parent lounge, as they're all watching on closed circuit TVs of dance practice. And there's a dance dad just looking at me walking through holding a beer. And he just had that look in his eyes. We can do that here? I just blew his mind.
I would have liked that they still maybe in between sets for each of the acts, just let some of the young dancers get up and do practice one of their routines, a little dress rehearsal for a crowd.
Yeah, totally different crowd than they're used to. It's not just supportive grandparents. It's very judgmental 24-year-olds. So that's
hecklers.
That really helps you develop. Yeah. That's what young dancers need for their self-esteem is hecklers.
Build character. Let's go. We need tougher kids in America.
That's right. We do. We need tougher kids, and we need to poll all of the kickers in the NFL to see what other opinions they have about America. That's what I want, is when your kicker becomes an offseason story.
I love it. Oh, yeah. How about that? Shout out to the Chargers social team, by the way, for dropping the Harrison Butker in the kitchen onto the end. Also, I had a whole thing. I really wanted to dive into the Chargers Bengals scene, which included what appeared to be a bunch of influencers influencing women following Joe Burrow in his Super Bowl costume. Costumes more the word than it was actual a suit. I mean, it's pretty wild. Following him around with all of the internet rumors that are flying around about that. And I thought that was well done at the Jamar Chase's 7-Eleven with the elves reference that showed up later. No stone unturned from them.
Yeah,
kudos
their
to
season
them.
Peaked with that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the case, but nobody. It's just an Easter egg bonanza, and that is those are some deep cuts everywhere on that one. On that note, though, dad life. I have a quick dad life that happened last week. There's few moments lower when you get you get the folder that comes home from school. Here's the folder. You open it up. What is it today? Okay, here's next week's schedule. Here's what they're learning. Here's a homework or test or whatever. And then in the middle of it at the front is a letter that your room has lice.
Oh no.
That is the lowest, that is the absolute worst case scenario for something that can show up that it's had, because now, next thing you know, have you ever dealt with a lice situation?
No,
It is
3 kids.
awful.
We've not had a single lice letter come home.
We dealt with it when my youngest was a newborn, and it was you're picking nits, really actually having to pick nits, because it can just jump around in these classrooms. Next thing you know, you bring it home and it can get from you to the mom to the other daughter or whatever. It is unbelievable. And we ended up just going to a place that strictly takes care of lice. They knock it out. You go there. It's meant for kids. They have it's like one of these kids dentist office or something. There's TVs on the wall, and they sit there and they pick everything out and they get it all taken care of for you. And you have to just make sure you're checking on it over the next week or whatever. I cannot recommend that enough. If you end up in this unfortunate situation where a letter comes home and you are a victim of this, just go get it. It's worth whatever money you're going to pay. You don't want to be out here picking nits. It is the scariest thing that you can see that can come home. Forget, I don't care if there's been an injury report. I don't care if there's all kinds of problematic things that you have to sign up for or pay for at the school. No, I don't want to see that lice letter. That's scary. I don't want to have to be worrying about that. And so if any of you have experienced this, God bless you, but go get it professionally taken care of if it ever happens. Luckily, we didn't get it this time, but we were worried about it.
That's interesting because I don't even crack that folder that comes home from school most weeks. You know, they bring that stuff. I'm not reading that every week. I got too many kids for that. I just pull out everything, put it in a big pile, and sort through it at the end of the year. Hope that we get all the tests and projects marked off. I'll find out like 3 months later there was a lice letter. Also, don't know that I recommend how much you're propping up these lice solution places. And yeah, if it happens to you, get it knocked out. That's a good way to do it. But I'm starting to ask myself, if there's a place that exclusively deals with lice, how are the lice getting into these classrooms? How are they drumming up new business? You don't think there might be a little bit of conspiracies happening here with their introducing the lice into local communities just to drum up business for their lice shop?
Introducing the lice.
They got a good lice guy. They get these lice delivered, and then they start releasing them into the classrooms, and now all of a sudden their schedules are filled.
I don't agree with that. Shout out to Simplicity, which is where we've gone over on Ward's Corner.
That's the Simplicity?
That's the name of it. You laugh all you want.
That rules.
It was life-saving. It was life-saving for us at that point. So
you don't see Simplicity advertising. That's all I'm saying is they don't have to.
I don't care.
They don't have to advertise because they are corrupt and they're just throwing it around. They don't need advertising.
The corrupt lice community.
The lice conglomerates are out there. They're corrupt.
Oh man, that's great. All right.
Yeah.
We did it. We did it. Look at us go. We completed an episode. All schedule, all the time. Hope all of you guys enjoyed that. Send in your questions as we go forward. Of course, you got next week. Jay will be back, so we have plenty to get to with him, and Dey Light will be back next week. OTAs still going on through the middle of June, so we'll have some reaction from stuff down in the locker room and down in the field, which is next Tuesday, and we'll keep it rolling. Lots of fun things planned for you in the future, so keep it locked here. Send in all of your questions for anything to TheGrowlerPodcast@gmail.com. And we'll sort through them and we'll get to it. And we got a lot of stuff to get to that we didn't get to today because we were so schedule heavy. So know that we see you, we feel you, we understand.
We appreciate you.
The Growler Barn is close to our hearts. So, all right, thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time.